he ran around the building on this exact same spot where he could see me, and then he started calling me.
Well, he can't see up above himself very well, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, they're getting bigger. I wish I had a little more sunlight. He keeps putting them back in. Wednesday was the next time it was planned. Okay, so you're starting to feed everybody less, right? Half a cup to all the animals that are by themselves, and only the babies get all the food they want. But actually, you could separate her now if you want to put her in her cage with a couple babies.
With 4 babies, probably?
All right, so I have the same watering system in this bed as I do in the front. It's an old hose with holes cut and then a snap cap put over the top. It works really, really well. It works fast. It's watered in about 1 minute. The other thing is, as you'll see Abraham, who is a little pig, as you see him running around. This year we're doing pigs a little different. I really want to see how well the pigs will do going through and turning over a garden bed. I want to see how that works. And the other thing is, I don't want to be wasting kitchen scraps just having cats eat them. I've got a lot of whey right now, a lot of milk from the goats. And he's a little guy. His parents were not very big. They looked really starved and underfed. He was the breed that I wanted, but not from the stock that I wanted. And so he's little. And because he's by himself, he's not going to get as big as if he had a friend with him to compete in eating. And being by himself, he's going to be bonding with people more. So in other words, what I'm trying to create is a pet pig, so that I can experiment with training a pig to eat weeds in my garden. Right now he's pretty much just tearing up the mulch that I have all set up that's so beautiful. He's totally tearing it up. And so it doesn't look fantastic right now, but we're still experimenting. As he digs up and makes holes in the beds and in the garden that's out here, that's in the ground, we just cover it back up with mulch and we rewater. Usually I wouldn't have to rewater right now, but because he's out here making holes, I have to rewater, because every time that you expose the dirt instead of having mulch on the top, it creates a loss of moisture. So, but it's an experiment. Once upon a time I was experimenting with rabbits and ducks, and it took some time to figure that out, and it's going to take some time with the pigs. But I'm going to go turn the water on right now and get this bed watered. Okay, so these are the rows that I have my normal watering system set up to. They're really easy to water. It doesn't take me very long to do them because it's just flipping a switch. I love these beds. The reason they work really well for me is that they have a lip on the outside like this that holds water and fertilizer in the middle to the plants instead of getting out in the pathways. Now we still have weeds in the pathways. I go through and take it down with my weed whacker, but I plant thick and we don't get weeds in the beds themselves. So it just is, it's a very simple, very easy system. And where I have new soil and I am having to put a lot of fertilizer in it, it's just been a much better garden than it has been before. I do have a few spots where I don't have those water lines set up, and the reason is that they're on flat ground. And so I have clear tubs here. They're just Rubbermaid tubs, and I have to keep lids on them so they're not growing mosquito larvae. When I'm not using the pump, I need something here to be able to water with that I'm not hauling hoses around, and so that system is that I have these tubs full of water that came off the pump when it was on. I do have one hose, and so I fill up all the tubs and then I walk things by hand, and it works really well. A little bit of hand watering does not bother me. What has been a bit tricky again is that I have so much to water. I have this garden plus I have the back garden, and I need to be able to do it when the weather is cool, and there's just a lot that needs to fit in when I have the watering system on, and I don't always remember everything. And lately we've been weeding a little bit because of some bindweed, and so the kids have had to help me with watering in the backyard just so that everything gets done on the same day, and we can kind of check it off in our brain. It takes a large volume, a lot of pressure to run my watering systems. They're very efficient. They're from the canal. The water's dirty. I have to have a bigger pipe. I have to have bigger holes because there's going to be algae and other things that needs to be blown out from each individual hole. And so it has to be a pretty pressurized system. These are my green beans. We've been planting them, spacing out planting them since May. And they will sprout and then they'll die. Just too cold for them in our soil. When they finally germinated and they're doing well is the middle of July. So the way that I made this work, and that I won't have water rushing out the side of the beans, which is important because we have bindweed, and bindweed will just climb up in the beans and be super happy. So what I did is I dug a 6-inch trench. It was 6 inches wide and 6 inches down. I put a ton of beans in, very, very heavy, as heavy as I plant peas. And then I put potting soil over it. I put a little bit of fertilizer over it. Beans don't like too much nitrogen. And then on top of that, I just poured perlite. I wanted to make it so that the ground stayed warm. I wanted it to stay moist, but not caked. I didn't want it to form a crust on the top. It's really, really important, especially this time of year for us, when everything starts to take just leap ahead. It's really important to keep a journal, a garden journal, a homestead journal, not a personal, I love this guy, he loves me journal. It needs to be a garden journal. You need to draw out where you've planted everything. You need to label them. You need to talk about what varieties of things you preferred, and you need to write it down, because next year you will not remember all the little details. It's not the big details that make it work. It's the little details like perlite on top of beans. All right, this bed is the only one that weeds really took over in, and I planted it to rows. Instead of just chunking the seeds in, I put them in rows. And yeah. All of the paths have weeds in them, but only this bed is out of control with weeds. We've got zucchini there, that's the big ones, and we've got tomatoes, that's where the sticks are, and lots of beets and Swiss chard. This one is potatoes and onions, and I'm going to be harvesting those for canning soon. This one is sunflowers. We did plant other things in here, but we have harvested most of them. So they're doing good. So every time I water, I have to come out and weed whack these paths. You can see this is corn, and we have squash in here, and also beans and Chinese cabbage to help keep the moisture in. And because we didn't know how well the corn would do, it looks like it's doing okay. But you can see we've got winter squash coming out in the pathways. And then on this side, more winter squash in the pathways, and more winter squash coming out through here, because I'm going to harvest these potatoes before I harvest the squash, and I wanted something else planted in here that would give us food. And so just about everything in here has multi types of plants. I have my early growers that put things on early in the year, and then I take those out to give room to the late growers. So the potatoes are coming out to let squash in. With the corn, the squash is a low grower while the corn is a high grower. I don't know if the squash will have enough sunlight in here because the rows are so close together. So that's what we're kind of watching to see. And we've got lettuce and other things in here that want protection from the sun. So we've got lettuce. I don't know if you can see it. Here we go. So at this point, Kai is harvesting the lettuce for the rabbits, and we're harvesting the lettuce for ourselves. We started harvesting this row about 2 weeks ago, and she's just about got the lettuce and the cabbage taken out. And the reason I do this is because I want to keep weeds down, and so by putting in lots and lots of seeds and then thinning and eating those extra seeds, we keep the soil protected until the main plant, which is the corn, is big enough to take care of itself and shade out weeds. So there's also lettuce in this one, but it's actually having an easier time because the potatoes are not keeping the sunlight out as much as the corn is. So the potatoes are still allowing a little sun. And this is a later bed. This was the last lighter bed to go in. I rotate them out. They all have a turn directly under the light, and then once they start to get a little bushier, which these ones used to be in the middle, then I rotate them out so that they each get a chance directly under the light. I need to lift the light up again. It's too close to the plants.